Welcome to the Art of Quantum Healing, where we speak about trauma, mental health and healing. I am your host, Lisa Nadler, and I'm thrilled to have you come into my energetic field. In this podcast, I will be sharing my own personal experiences to guide, teach, and help pave the way. We'll also be welcoming so many other divine souls who have overcome trauma and found happiness, health, wealth, and next level abundance through mind, body, and soul connection. My mission is to help women high vibe and thrive with inner peace, passion, and purpose.
Welcome to another episode of the Art of Quantum Healing. Today I'm really excited. I have a magical man in the house who is going to be going deep on mental health and trauma. I'll just let you know a little bit about him so you can get to know him like I have. Daryl Elliott Green's love of helping others, adventure and fitness led him to join the Queensland Police force at the age of 18. At 27 years of age, he had completed a Bachelor of Arts in Justice Studies and was awaiting promotion to Senior Constable. On the 1st of May 2000, he was on night work and expecting a quiet Sunday night, which you would, Sunday, pretty quiet. Daryl was to confront every police officer's worst nightmare, and he's here to share his story. So welcome, Daryl.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, Lisa.
Yeah, it's great to have you. So I was watching all the different, and I'm going to put these links below so people can actually look at them. And I was watching your TED Talk, which was magnificent, and your 6-minute video, which is so powerful, and the audio and everything last night. And I was just, my heart was just like, holy shit, no one should ever have to go through something like that. So love you to tell the audience about a little bit about what happened, or tell them what happened really, because it's definitely a story that needs to be heard.
I was 27 years of age. I been in the police since I was 18 years old, and I was waiting for promotion to Senior Constable Sunday afternoon, and I've gone to a beer garden with friends, and I'm sipping on a cold beer, and a mate comes over. Hey, Greenie, great afternoon, mate. Why don't you stay out, take a sickie? I have many thoughts about if I made a different decision on that night, but I consider that I don't let my mates down. I turn to Graham. Love the party on, mate, but I can't let my friends down.
Yeah.
Go to work for us in the police, a routine job, death threats. And we speak to 2 males at this cul-de-sac. It wasn't in imminent danger. Threats have been made 6 hours ago, and we're conducting our investigations. And so we need to make a decision. Are we going to go and consider this an emergent threat and we've got to execute an immediate search warrant? Or is there credibility in the information not such that we need to seek out a justice of the peace and let them decide to issue us a search warrant?
Right.
So we moved back to the patrol car. My sergeant, Chris Mulhall, he's in the driver's seat. He's using a mobile phone to do background checks on the suspect. My partner, Chanel, she's seated in the front passenger seat. She's using the police radar to do background checks. A lot of thoughts about what I did next. I stood outside the car and I thought, well, I need to know what's going on. And so I've opened the rear passenger door, sit down, and I slid across so I could listen to the information that was coming in. And we're only going to be here a few moments, so I leave the door open. It's dark, it's still, it's quiet. All of a sudden, I hear this pat, pat, pat sound. I wonder, what can that be? And so I quickly processed, a thought went across my mind, the only thing that makes sense is that's got to be some neighbourhood dog. They're always giving police trouble. So I just nonchalantly turn and look.
Yeah.
Standing there is a man, but I can't see him because we've got the interior light on. I have no night vision. My head is just only for a split second. This man's pointing a .22 caliber rifle at my face. Bang, I'm shot in the face. Bang, I'm shot in the arm. My hands are around my mouth. There's blood, there's teeth, there's bones. I try to open the door here. The child locks up. I sit up. The sergeant sees it's empty. His door is wide open. My partner is splattered with blood. She looks completely motionless. I scream, get help. I draw my firearm and I go out to the door that I got shot through.
This is all with your jaw and everything and blood streaming out everywhere. Good.
Yeah.
Amazing what you do, isn't it? Adrenaline. Yeah.
Yep. So that was the adrenaline exactly. I felt no pain. Didn't even realise I'd been shot a second time in the arm, which had lodged in my shoulder. And the mobile phone that the sergeant was on, it fell onto the roadway. He was speaking to police communications. They record all their communications. So what is about to take next is it's all recorded on audio. And sometimes, you know, I think people might be wondering, oh, he's gilding the lily. Well, certainly when I'm speaking on stage, I'd say, what was that moment like? Let me take you there. And I play the audio and you get to hear me.
And the link will be below, so you can listen to the audio now. They can actually listen, probably pause it and listen to it. Would be very impactful.
My dad's, my mum forgave me for the language used on that night, but my dad's still a little bit upset about it. And when I do a talk, he says, "Oh, I like your son when you do that scrolling audio of yourself when you've got at the car and you're screaming at the gunman and you've gone after him, and can you just do the one that's bleeped out." So it's up to the audience. I tell Dad, it's all about the audience.
It is, Dad. Dad's actually listening, audience. We'll just let you know, Dad's actually listening right now. I've actually got it. I wonder how long is it? I wonder if I should play it.
It goes for about 6 minutes.
Oh, it's 6 minutes. So, that's the start of it. It tells you a lot, doesn't it? Anyway, yeah. So then what happened?
The short of it is I've searched for the gunman. I couldn't find him. Then I had a decision to make. Do I tend to my partner or search for my sergeant? No easy decision, got to make one. And I thought, well, I know where my partner is. Maybe my sergeant is lying wounded in the street. So I start walking down the street, yelling his name, my firearm drawn, Chris, Chris, Chris. People are starting to come out their house, so I have to give them a warning to go back into their houses. I can't find my sergeant. I can't locate the gunman. And so I turn around and I walk back to the patrol car. I rest my right arm on the bottom of the patrol car, holding my firearm. My left hand, I'm trying to staunch the flow of blood from my mouth because all this bone, it's just all shattered here. So, and look through the windshield at my partner, and she says, "Greenie, I'm hurt. Greenie, I'm hurt." Absolute music to my ears, because I knew
could hear
my partner was alive. So I was suffering audio exclusion, and which you'd be most familiar with, critical incidents. Your senses. You get tunnel vision, and that your hearing. It changes just to concentrate on what's the most important. And so, yeah, I never heard her on the radio, and on the tape you can hear her. She's on the radio screaming out, asking for help, advising we've been shot. I heard none of that. So I didn't know. So I've come back, found her alive, and it's probably a funny thing to say that when one of your mates is saying I'm hurt. Well, I was happy.
Totally.
I stood guard over Charnel at the bottom of the police car, pouring claret all over the front of it, and then a very brave man turned up. His name was Senior Constable Brett Price. He was the supervisor from Ferny Grove. He was working by himself. He had the call go out over the radio, and he wanted to get to as quickly as possible and expecting to find at least one dead officer. And just to show you the type of person he was, this is a critical incident. Time matters. Now, if he put himself first, and there's been a lot of discussion around this, but I'm grateful for what he did, because certainly by the time he got there, my adrenaline had started to go. I was in lots of pain and was quite delirious with, and that. So procedure says that going to a critical incident, you stop the vehicle, you go to the rear of the boot car, you take out the heavy ballistic vest, you place it on, you then insert a ballistic plate that offers even more protection for long arms. And then you attend the incident. Well, Brett could hear the radio calls. He knew how desperate it was. He knew time mattered. So he decided not to do that and to get there as soon as possible.
Yeah. And
I'm very grateful for this man. He's come into the scene by himself, and just you can just see a police car at the end of the street, flashing lights. We've got police ambush, one screaming on the radio. So, a sergeant is outstanding, and myself. So I'm just incredibly grateful for this individual and the bravery that he showed on that night. And
well, he took over from when you couldn't show your bravery because you had hit that critical moment of, I need help now, I can't do this. So it's like one took over from the other, which is so beautiful.
Yep. He come over and he asked me about the offender, and I've just said I've been shot in the face, been shot in the right. Says, calm me down. It's all right, mate. I'm here. Moved over to the car, and he got us down on the ground. He was in the middle. So Charnel had tried to get out the car, but she's so badly injured she couldn't. She collapsed in the gutter. So she's on the left. Brett's in the middle, and I'm on the right. And we've got our firearms focused out in front of us, covering where the offender might have come from.
Just on high alert. And you still hadn't found the sergeant? Like he was it sergeant missing in action?
No. What had occurred is Chris got hit in the arm in the opening fusillade, and the window was open, the mobile phone found on the ground. He's exited the vehicle and he's looked across and he saw a fair-headed person. I'm a fair-headed person. The suspect, or now offender, was fair-headed. And he said to me, if I took the shot and killed you, I'd be a villain. If I took the shot and killed the offender, I would be a hero. And this is, in that darkness, I couldn't make that choice.
You've got to make decisions at the moment. You just got to...
In a split second, exactly. Wow. Right. And so he's decided I'm going to make a space and gain some distance. So he runs across the road, and then he gets hit a second time. And Chris likes to say he got hit in the lower back, but I don't know about you.
That doesn't look like a back.
That's not my lower back. So Chris has been hit in the buttocks, and his thought process, are we being sniped at now? Yeah. So he's got two bullets in him. There's been a fusillade of 10 rounds that have been sprayed into the car, and so he's making split-second, decisions. And to his credit, there's been a lot of people who've taken a shot and they've, killed somebody that they shouldn't have. Yeah, and so he had the presence of mind of not to do that.
And he's in survival mode as well. His adrenaline's going. He's making decisions the best he can with what's happening.
He comes to a 6-foot chainmail fence, and again, he's got 2 bullets in him, but the adrenaline's rushing. Not part of the train, but he throws his firearm over because time is everything. So he doesn't holster it, throws it over, both hands on top, and then just somersaults himself over the top. Gets over the top, gathers up his firearms. He runs and he sees a house with a light on. He bangs on the door. There's a homeowner up, and he looks through this peephole. And Chris is saying, police, I've been shot, let me in. And the homeowner, his thoughts was, this is a load of bollocks. Looks through the peephole. He sees a bloke in blue covered in red, opens up the door, rushes in. Chris says, where's your telephone? And Chris sits down. He gets on the telephone to call police communications to let them know what's happened. Yeah. Request help. He has his firearm pointed at the door. The homeowner, he starts wrapping Chris's...
It's scary shit, isn't it? This is like a movie.
Happened. He wrapped it in his injured arm and blood because he's pouring blood all over the carpet. Yeah. In this house, and it was so much blood the police service actually cut it up and replaced it. But it just again shows you people's reactions and how we all sort of deal with things different ways. So the shooting's taken place. Chris is sat here. He's on the phone to police communications, giving a brief. He's got his firearm at the door. The gentleman's wrapping his arm. Out comes his wife. He looks at her husband, looks at Chris, looks back at the husband and says, when you're finished there, don't forget to turn the light out in the kitchen. Goes back to bed.
Oh my God. What? That just does. It shows how people deal with trauma, because that was a trauma response. Oh my God.
Exactly. Yeah. I overwhelmed. Wow. I can't deal with this. My husband's doing something. I'm just going about what would I normally do? Turn the light off in the kitchen. And so I do not have any animosity or criticism for this lady, but just to try to educate people that in that split second, you do not know how you are going to react.
Nope. What you're going to say, what you're going to do, what you're going to feel. Your body just takes over, doesn't it? It goes into the trauma response, the survival.
And you're thinking of that very primitive part of your mind.
Yeah. Oh my God. And here you are today. So you were bundled up, taken to the hospital, and had, I don't know how many operations, just years of operations, 2 years or something of operations?
No. So we were transported to the Royal Brisbane Hospital, and they triaged us, and it was a public holiday, the 1st of May. And so normally there would have been, 2 operating theatres running, so it was only a run, so I had to scramble for resources. Yeah. And my head wound was deemed the most serious, and so I was the first one rushed to the operating theatre to extract the bullet from my head. So that first round, it's been said to me by psychiatrists, many years later, and some of the treatment that I had received, and some of the comments they said, you look so normal. If you had a big scar down your face, it would help people just to let them know that what you went through. But I had great surgeons, and they couldn't see it. So, all the bone behind there. So it's actually gone to that maxilla bone. So we've got our teeth here, and these are all fake. And all this up here has been replaced. So they've had all this bone, 3 teeth, 2 teeth down here, the bullets ended my tongue, gone down the back of the tongue, lodged in my throat. Yeah. And so when it's come time for reconstruction surgery, they had nothing to attach teeth to. So that's what caused so many issues. But they never even bothered with the one in my arm, because they had to use keyhole surgery to extract the bullet from my tongue. Yeah. And then they needed to operate on Charnel. And then finally, Chris got operated on about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Wow. And we were out of immediate danger, but my body I was rushed to intensive care. My father said to me after visiting intensive care, he could hardly recognise me. My head had swelled to the size of a melon. And anyway, that came down. I had a tracheotomy to help. Most of us don't remember intensive care. You get to
good drugs.
Get to our age, 30. Your case, 20s. Get to our age.
God bless you.
Get to our age, and you probably would experience intensive care, and normally don't remember anything. But I remember asking for the tracheotomy because I couldn't breathe. So, currently people now, they're, with COVID, and they're talking about not being able to breathe. It's a horrible feeling. And I've been there with my head swelled up. And so they gave me the tracheotomy, and that relieved the breathing. But then my communication was all by writing. So for my family investigators, and that was brought on its own, we should say, inconveniences.
Not being able to speak and is, very restricting,
And so the reconstruction process, it was so intrusive, it was like a second trauma. It went on. So over the course of time, I counted them up. I had 17 major surgical procedures. That is, full anaesthetic. And that was, to knock me out, to do bone grafts and implants, etc. And I had 20 months off work because that's how long the first reconstruction took, and then that failed, and I had to go back under the knife, and so exactly. And I only realised how much it affected it mentally once I was over the physical pain, and that was behind me. So it was 7 years after the shooting, after those 17 major surgical procedures, when the last orthodontic work was carried out in 2007. So 7 years of my life I've been dealing with this, and it was deemed a success. And I got asked to speak in the police, and then I got asked they were actually, flying me to a district officers conference in Charleville in Queensland. And I've been asked by recruits, about photographs and information. And so I thought, well, they're investing, time and money in me, so I'll give them, a little bit more about that journey. And it just talks about kindness. And I went to them about getting some help with some graphics. And I actually used to work at this particular unit, this training unit at the Academy in multimedia. And they said, "Oh, we'd love to help you, and we can do it in 6 months." Well, I'm due to speak in 2 months. And one of the blokes there, and I've always sort of said this, I feel pretty good about myself, because if I'm able to help somebody, I will. And that really comes from my dad. That listens from my dad. And so what happened was, somebody I worked with at multimedia, Trevor Baker, he had a fall and had a head injury, and he was off work for 3 months. And so every Thursday I would drive past the PA hospital, call in, see how he's going, and we'd go to the Norman Hotel for a steak. And
the good Norman, best steak. They do have the best steak.
And I didn't realise the impact I was having on him until they gave me this news, and at the multimedia it said, "We can only do these graphics in 6 months' time." So I'm speaking in 2 months. So I said, "Well, it's pointless." Anyway, Trevor waited till I left the office, and he followed up to me and said, "Hey, Daryl, when are you speaking? 2 months." And he said, "Mate, do you remember visiting me at the Norman Hotel? Sorry, at the Princess Alexandra?" I said, "Yeah, mate. I was calling in to see you, mate. I've been asked to speak at a district officer conference in Charleville, Queensland. I think, well, they're flying me out there. They're investing time and resources. I want them to get the most out of this." And recruits have already asked. They said, "Well, do you have any photographs or any information? Because it really helped draw us into the story." Well, we're the police. We collect everything. We document it. We interview people. And we type it down. We have a chain of evidence for everything that we receive. So I go to the Academy's multimedia unit, and I used to actually work there. And I speak to the officer in charge, and I tell him, I've got this upcoming presentations, and I'd like a bit of help with some graphics to help draw the people in. He said, "Yeah, mate, love to help, and we can do it in 6 months." And I'm speaking in within 2 months. And one of the people that I worked there side by side for a couple of years, he waited till I left, and we're on the just outside the door, and he says, "Hey, Daryl, you're speaking at Charleville, and you need some graphics?" And I said, "Yeah." Well, he made a decision then, because a couple of years before this, something happened. We were at work, and on the weekend, he had a fall and got a brain injury, ended up at the Princess Alexandra Hospital for 3 months. And on a Thursday every week, I was going by the PA, so Trevor's a mate, I'd stop, call in and take him out, and we go to the Norman Hotel for a steak. And
he looked forward to that day every week. Oh my goodness.
I did not realise this. And that's what he said. He said, "Mate, I was eating hospital food for 3 months in a row." Imagine eating, economy class, food that's cold for 3 months. He said, "I hated the food, and I look forward to every Thursday when you popped in and took me for a steak." And so he said, "Mate, I'm going to do this for you in my own time." And so I went down to his house in Ipswich and on the weekends, and we started doing up graphics to show the street scenes, how the shooting unplayed. Yeah. And what was a big aha point for me was driving home after one session, and I was on the highway. I'm starting to feel a bit woozy, and I'm what's going on, and I'm feeling a bit dazed, and I'm I've got some thoughts now, feeling like trauma and pain and uncomfortableness and anxiety. And I realised that I've been through a lot of treatment in relation to the shooting, but nothing for the 7 years of traumatic reconstruction surgery. And this brought up a lot of painful memories. And by doing that, and once I realized that was an aha moment, and then I can understand it, and then I could accept it, and then I could prepare myself. So when I was going down to do the next series on the mouth of graphics, I could just prepare myself, saying, "Well, I might feel a bit uncomfortable after this." Yeah. I knew desensitization worked well for me, and so I was happy to go down and do it again and again.
I want to talk about that desensitization, because it's really funny with that. And thank you for sharing that story. It was great. And I mean, because when you constantly, you don't realize it, you think that the main event is the trigger, but there's so many other triggers around it. There's so many other things that something simple can happen and all of a sudden you're activated. And you talk about this as well when you said that you used to drive past the area where I think it was, and if you heard something, it'd be like, or guns, etc., etc. But I want to talk to you about the desensitizing, because this is completely different from this is like the other spectrum from what I do. When I do my trauma work with my clients, I don't allow them to go into the trauma too much, because your body doesn't understand when it's reliving something. It actually thinks it's actually living it for the first time. So when you're creating a memory through your subconscious and through your neurological pathways, it activates with the trauma response in your body. And so when you did yours, so for me, I remove it. When I do it, I detach the emotion from the actual physical event. But you did the same thing, but in a very different way. So you actually went into the event. You actually kept reliving that moment. That's tough. That's really hard on the body, man. That's serious. How did you navigate that? Because how many weeks of therapy was that actual one thing?
I love history, and I love particularly military history.
Yeah.
And so a lot about the Vietnam War I still find quite fascinating.
Yeah.
But I remember as a teenager, my dad would always watch the news, and it'd be the late 80s, and there was footage of these American Vietnam veterans who would have been by this stage 50 years of old.
Yeah.
And they had beards, and they were taken up in the iconic Huey helicopters with that whoop, whoop, whoop sound, and they showed tears running down their face. And I just mentioned they were trying, there's a new therapy, for Vietnam veterans who've struggled all these years after the war. Here we are, 30 years on from this war. And it's just one of those memories that I parked away.
Yeah.
And thinking that
see everything for a reason, you don't know when and why.
So the shootings occurred, and then I got introduced to a police psychologist who was particularly chosen to help me with therapy because of his own experience, which was, his name's Chris Mankelo, and he's a Vietnam veteran. At 17 years of age, he joined the Australian Army. At 19, 5 months into his tour in Vietnam, he's on patrol, he's point man, he's moving through the jungle. His armor-light rifle pushes up an almost invisible piece of string, which is attached to a hand grenade in a tin. He moves forward, grenade drops to the ground. Kaboom, a chunk of flesh the size of 2 fists is torn out of his right calf. His right leg is broken, and his lower back is showered with shrapnel. He was medevaced out from the scene. He was flown to Malaysia for further surgery. And after this, the doctor said to him, "Chris, if your leg wound does not heal, I'm afraid we're going to have to amputate your leg." That not knowing is another causes anxiety. And even if it's bad news, most of us just want to know it. Let me get the bad news, let me accept it, and let me do something, whatever I can do.
Yeah.
So he had that weighing on him that he was possibly going to lose this limb.
Mm-hmm.
They were able to save it. He soldiered on in the army for another 3 years in various training outfits, but it got to the point things were so bad that he burnt his uniform and burned all his photographs and documentation from Vietnam and the army so he could leave that period of his life behind. Yeah. The only thing he couldn't leave behind was the trauma of the war. And not only just his injury, he told me about stories of people being killed, people being tortured, macabre accidents of a grenade going off in the back of a four-wheel drive with a number of soldiers in it, and just horrific carnage. And he said in that 5 months, more has occurred in that time in my life than the 70 years that have now gone by.
It's the same for a police officer though, because you see things that you shouldn't see. You have to navigate through things. You've got to help people. It's a lot, and that's why that brings on the PSTD, because it's just constant things that you are storing in your body and in your mind, and it's I don't know how policemen do it, or policewomen. I really don't. It's huge. It's huge. mentally,
It is.
physically,
And
emotionally, spiritually, the whole freaking lot.
some people, have they can be a little bit dismissive about PTSD, PTSD, and so I like to say I'd like to try to imagine some of the, say, one of the jobs we had here in police, there was a horrible murder up north, and there's 8 children, and I was introduced to one of the officers who was first on the scene, who was in his first 12 months of policing, to try to talk about my experience and how it was initially for me. And so they were just first on the scene of this horrific scene. But then think about the people who had to come there and photograph and document and gather the evidence. They were in there for a week. And I challenge anybody, if you're a normal, empathetic, well-adjusted human being, to spend 8 days photographing and documenting 8 children who've been murdered, not to have a negative impact on your mental health.
The chemicals in your brain, good God, it's huge. And on that, Daryl, you can see something as horrific as that, but you can also have something minute happen and it triggers the same response. It actually triggers the same sort of thing. But when you're constantly seeing it on different places and you're going to road accidents and you're going to, what you're visually seeing, your body is feeling and it's reliving. And when you're sleeping, you're dreaming about it. And, you're constantly being triggered by different things and memories are coming up. And our physical bodies aren't meant to take this. We're supposed to be in a beautiful space of harmony, of joy, of love, and all the juiciness. And when we're having to be put in those sort of situations, it is huge. It is damaging. I coach a lot of women that have PTSD. I actually coach a lot of ex-police cops. And, the memories that they have and the things that they have been through, nobody should have to go through that. And it's not just that one event, it's that you're constantly reliving it. And so is your body, and so is your mind. And from you, the incident that one, even just that one incident that you went through, that was so horrific, you would be constantly having triggers. And there's a part in your 6-minute video that if the viewers that are listening, the link's down below, I really encourage you to look at. And you're in the shower, and you've got your hands on your face, and it just. I had tears. It was just, I felt every moment of that, because you're processing so much through your body, so much through your mind, that you can't stop the mind. And, whether you're in the bottom of or you're standing up in the shower, it's your body is not designed to go through that. So if anyone thinks that PTSD is bullshit, well, they're fucking idiots. Sorry, Dad. Didn't mean to swear. Dad's in the back.
Yeah.
They are. I'm really passionate about it because it's horrific on your health and your mentalness. So how did you start navigating through that? How did you start to heal yourself in those aspects?
And so Chris offered to me. So after that experience he had, and he said to me, he got to the point where he was dangerously suicidal. I said, "I've been there, mate, gun in the mouth, ready to end it all." Yep. Doesn't have to be like that. So he gave me hope, because I was talking to somebody with the lived experiences who'd been through it and come out the other side. Mm-hmm. And he offered to, as a psychologist, he offered to put me through the desensitization treatment. Mm-hmm. And it has, for different people, some benefit or no benefit, and some people it can make the trauma worse. I happen to be just lucky to fall into that category where desensitization treatment works extremely well for me. And so I went through that in a controlled process with a psychologist, which was improving, because what happened was the first time he got me to sit in his recliner chair, close my eyes, talk about the experience. And when I got to the point I'm describing, being shot in the face, I've jolted upright, and I gasped, and my eyes opened. I was actually say my body was reliving it. That memory was so raw. But over the course of months, he took it through me that process 6 times, and at the end of which I could talk about the shooting and without any adverse
it was no
results.
Chemical response.
No chemical response, and so I've used that quite a lot. So I used it later on, if you watch the video, because I knew in firearms training, and I had a great inspector, Dave Stevenson. A lot of people are afraid something could go wrong. It's just easier to say no. But he was an amazing leader. When I talk about leadership, I talk about Dave, I talk about how he built trust and the courageous conversations we were holding. And I was open and honest with him. And a lot of people could say, you know what, the really easy decision is to say no. If you perform poorly, it could reflect badly on me, or if you have some issues. But Dave wasn't like that. And
he empowered you, didn't he? He empowered you to tell your story. That was so cool.
And so I was very grateful for him to have that trust in me, and it was challenging, but I knew this has worked for me, you know, describing it. So hopefully it'll work for me with firearms, which it has. So the same thing as I worked in the reconstruction of the mouth, that's desensitized me. And even to this day, people ask me, after a keynote, I often ask, listening to that audio, how do you feel? And
great question.
I'm concentrating now on what I'm going to say next and the audience and my talk. I'm so desensitized to it. For me, it's like 6 minutes of twiddling my thumbs. Yeah. But I'm also very grateful that I can do that.
And that's the thing, like when I talk about my sexual abuse and that, I can sit and tell you everything. Like it's when you remove that chemical response that actually activates that feeling within your body, you can sit and talk about anything because you've made peace with it. But it's more so that, we have this trauma memory, and then the emotional response we have to it is what actually ignites within us and causes us to be mentally, physically, or reacted. So when you can disconnect that emotional attachment, you can actually talk about something, and you're actually quite free in your body because the neurological pathways aren't looking for something to be activated. They're like, oh no, we're good here, everything's fine. No, Daryl's been telling the story for a while now, he's okay. So it's that whole process that people don't do. And I loved it in your keynote when you said, I did the bravest thing, the absolute bravest thing. I asked for help. That shows so much strength. People think reaching out is weak. It is the complete opposite. Weakness. And it's not that anyone's weak or anyone's strong, but when you actually take that step to ask for help, it just completely shifts your life. You actually step into your strength. And so if anyone that's listening to this is sitting there going, oh, I don't know how to do it, I don't know how to reach out, I don't know what to do. I mean, Daryl's a Lifeline ambassador, so he knows about all this stuff, Reach out. There is so many people there to help you. And like Daryl taking that first step and actually asking for help. And your dad can probably speak into this because he was on that video as well, talking about your suicide. You really scared that the person that he loved, when you guys are like freaking brothers, not father and dad, was going to do something horrible, because you can't control someone 24 hours. So yeah, he's a good man, in that support network. So, I congratulate you for taking that step, because it's huge. And a lot of people just are too scared to take it. So tell us about, go.
I'll just tell you about doing that. And so you don't have to have anything as traumatic as a shooting. I had a relationship. There was a girl that I was, very keen on. I thought there was a future for us, and I got a text message, informing me that we'd broken up. And I had a flood of overwhelming feelings that I couldn't see no, future now for myself, because that had been torn away. And I had these thoughts, my smiles will end everything. What did I do? I picked up the phone and I spoke to a friend who was a retired police officer who was on sick leave from the work that he'd been involved in, which was pretty traumatic. But he'd come out the other side. So when he was going through this trauma, his wife left him, and he continued on, and he's got a flourishing life. But this was the person I picked up the phone to, and I said, mate, this has occurred. Would you come over and just stay with me? Like, I don't feel safe being on my own. Yeah. He came over, we talked about it that night, and talking is so helpful.
Processes, absolutely.
Yeah, processing it. And so he come over and he stayed that night. And the next day I was, that's occurred. And, I'm still feeling crap. But, I know life's going to go on. And maybe there's somebody out there who I'm even more suited to. Life's an adventure. So I was like,
exactly.
That hurdle.
Yeah. And you know what? You would have done the same thing for that guy at the hospital. You probably didn't realize it. When you took him out of the environment that he was in, he was probably near a time where he was just going like a little bit insane from being the hospital food and the TV up on the wall and the constant, because you can't rest when you're in hospital. Anyone that thinks that you get better in hospital, you heal when you get home, right? It's just so much going on. So you taking him out of that environment would have been the same sort of thing. Medicine, community and communication and having people to actually be with is medicine. It is such deep medicine. It really, really is. So tell us about the coffee technique. I love this. I just love it.
I have had, so I joined the police at 18, and my left school, didn't get any university courses as I wanted to, and I'm a bit adventurous. And one morning I said to my mum, at the kitchen table, I thought about joining the army because they stay fit and it's a bit adventurous, but they're doing nothing. Right? I don't want to go to the middle of Australia and dig trenches. And she said, "Oh, darling, why don't you join the police?"
Well, she's so cute.
So, and that's exactly what I did. And a few weeks later, my father had a conversation with me on the balcony, and he said, this is in the evening, and I can still remember it to this day. He said, "Son, I don't mind joining the police, but I'd rather you join the federal police than the state police. Join the federal police, you won't have to go to any of those domestics and have the risk of being shot." Me, I want to stay in sunny Queensland, enjoy the weather, so I ignored Dad, joined the Queensland Police. Was sworn in with 400 other officers, and I was the only one shot. But I survived and learned to live to tell the tale. And I didn't realise how rough life was going to be. And so I had a few challenges along the way. And but I also had points of of breaking out, of downing tools, and one of that would be is go seeing my brother and go doing some skiing in Austria. And do something like that. And so over the course of these challenges, I collected a number of coffee mugs, and I had to deal with some people who were not very emotionally intelligent.
That's a nice way
I would say they were, I would unfortunately say they were even narcissistic, which is a trait in some leaders. And I had to do something with the anger that would swell up in me, and how that I was being treated, or what was being said, or how they would even treat others. I've come to support others, and they've turned around and say, "Well, we're not doing that. That doesn't look good for the person who's the in charge of that area." And this was somebody who was being bullied. They'd broken down and cried. They'd called me in as a peer support officer role, and I came back to this commissioned officer. And I advised, look, this is what had occurred. I think, if we can keep people to work, that's the best outcome. And so I think we just remove him from that team just for a couple of days till he can meet the person that's in charge of that section, and they can work something out. And I said, "Nah, can't do that. Reflect poorly on the team leader. Person's got to stay there." Well, he didn't stay there, did he? No, he took time off work. And anyway, he eventually came back, and then one of these supervisors had said to me, he said, "These are the notes. A person's finally coming back to work after this long period off, and it says it here. Oh, he would like to thank Senior Sergeant Green. What did you do?" It's like I just listened to the person, try to put myself in the shoe. Yeah. And try to work out something that was not only good for him, but the organisation. And him staying at work would have benefited the organisation, and that person staying at work and engaged and feeling supported and believed, because I actually said around, now this was a case, person says, "I feel I'm being bullied." And I felt like saying, well, this was a case of the person. I didn't. I had to suck it up. I felt like if this is a person who was claiming that they were being sexually harassed, and that you would have had them out of that team in an instant. And anyway, so there
too many egos sometimes navigating certain decisions, isn't there?
So there'd be times, and what are you going to? We're all going to get angry, and you've got to do something, healthy with that anger. And so you can vent, you can distract, and you can control. But really, in the workplace, and at that point in time, my advice and what I had to do myself was just to control that anger. And so I'd have these 3 coffee mugs, and there's one that I would have for some, difficult meetings or dealing with difficult personalities, and we be on a project and be throwing around ideas, and some of them would just, scoff and make abuse of, not very complimentary comments, and about the ideas and etc. It was just terrible power games.
Yeah.
I love coffee, and so depending on what was going on the day, I'd have these 3 coffee mugs, and nobody ever realised that they were there for a specific purpose. And it's depending what was going on during the day. And those really tough days, I'm not looking forward to this. I'm thinking, what's going to happen? What's going to go on? Well, I'd grab this mug. Yeah. And this is the mug that I got after I climbed Kilimanjaro in 2013 for Special Olympics Australia. And I thought to myself, this is funny, coming from somebody who survived being shot in the head, got out the gun, went after the offender, not locating him, did all that and received the highest award for valor from the police service, to actually have this other experience. And you climb Kilimanjaro, do the final leg at 11 p.m. At night. Oh, okay. To start the final trek at midnight, and so you can reach the top and see the sun come up. But what had happened in 24 hours before that, I come down with violent vomiting and diarrhea. Oh, no. And I was so sick, and I've got a funny story that I tell in my keynotes if I tell this particular story, but this is when I look back at myself and saying, well, you've got intestinal fortitude, because I did it. They couldn't stop they really couldn't stop the vomiting. What they gave me for the diarrhea wasn't completely working. And I was there at 11 p.m. at night, and I said, if I don't get up and climb this mountain, I'm going to have to come back to it. Yep. So I got up. 2 people stayed with me, and we trekked up together. Oh my gosh. And I actually went, I said, look, I've got to go to the loo. So I went off to the side. So you can see this snake trail of people with their headlights on. Well, I need to go and,
You got to go.
Got to go. And I went out so where they couldn't see me, and took care of business. I came back, and my mate, Mark, he screamed, where are you? We were calling out for you. And I said, I needed a little bit of privacy. And anyway, it was the most physically challenging thing I've ever done in my life, was to climb that, still with the urge to reach, and with diarrhea going on. So I was completely drained. I should have been in bed and on fluids. And so at the end of that trek, I bought this coffee mug, and I would have this one at work, and I just look at it. I remember what I would have put up with. Yeah, this is nothing. I can remain my composure can remain calm in this meeting, and I can get out. Yeah, and so that's what I would use for it. But there'd be other days, and that I would be thinking about it. And one of them is I love to travel. I've been to over 40 different countries, and love having something to look forward to. And one of my favourite places is in Asia. And a lot of people haven't been there, but the Philippines, it's a little bit out the way, but it has an amazing history, so many islands, and incredible history from the Second World War. And so that one would remind me, hey, today's a little bit tough. What have I got coming up? I've got a holiday coming up in Thailand, or I'm seeing my brother. And lastly, I went in 2006 to the World Cup in Berlin, and I was doing 2 subjects, studying part-time on my master's in finance. Life had been, pretty tough, and I wanted to enjoy it. So I thought, well, I can do these 2 subjects, study them externally, go to the World Cup. And I met an amazing friend in Berlin, the son of a policeman, who took care of me, and we made the strongest bond of any friendship I've ever had, and in contact to this day. And that just reminds me of the good people in life and community. And so I might be at work, and there might not, I might not have anybody there that I particularly trust or inclined to, and that by saying, hey, there's good people around me, even if they are ones in Germany. So that was the simple things. It was simple, the great connections I have in life to remind me. the great things that I have to come, particularly travel and all the adventures. And I've got some already in mind. And lastly, we don't
get
know
through anything.
what up with.
That's a good one. You need that a lot.
Yeah.
But isn't it funny how that, and that just shows you how you can just simply switch the emotional intelligence within your body or the chemical balance in your mind to focus on something else. You can stop a moment that could actually be something that was quite detrimental, and you can just eliminate the noise, the confusion, whatever's going on around you, and you just come back to your body and the memories. I love that. It's something that is so simple and so intelligent when you think about it.
Well, the funny thing is, the director, Michael Hansen, who made that 6-minute film, we were here at my apartment, and it was into the lead up to the launching of that film. And she said to me, "Oh, Daryl, we don't want to know about the big things. Tell us about some of the small things you did." And I thought, geez, I do some things that I think are quite quirky. And so I've told her a few of them, and one of them was the coffee mugs. But then I started to realise that these are the things that really helped me through. They changed my thinking process. They even changed some of my body reactions. And so I thought, well, I'm learning from others, and some of these things I stumbled across and found worked for me. So now I talk more about some of these strange things. And one of them is when we got in contact and you asked about some of the healing modalities, and I told you one I haven't spoken to about a long time. And it would be like, I would do this on a Friday night. It's been the end of work, and it'd be quite intense, and feel all that pressure. And I'm not looking forward to Monday. And so I try to take myself out of that zone and give myself a mini break. And I would do this on a Friday night, planning it just for me, everything that I love to do. And so one of the first things was scents. I would have a cologne that I would only put on when for that night or when I was traveling. So I had this sense, it must be time to relax. You must be going to, have some new experiences, something to look forward to. So that was the sense. And then there was cooking. I cooked something that I would really like, or I'd only go overseas, like, steak tartare. And then I would watch something that I was particularly interested in, be it an inspiring true story like the movie Seabiscuit, or a documentary on war. So it was a night just for me, and whatever I wanted to do.
You could switch off. Yeah.
And another thing I did was, when I was preparing my dinner, I was playing, soothing music. But on my TV screen, where the music was coming through, the wallpaper would be something that would inspire me, that I know that I will be there soon. So it would either be the sun setting on a beach, so it reminds me I'm being in Asia on the beach, having a cocktail in the sunset, or it might be the ski fields in Austria, and people swooping down the slope saying, "Look, I'll be there in 6 months."
I love that, because what the eyes see, they actually live. You're actually living that. That's why with TV it can be so detrimental, because when you're watching something on TV, your body's actually living it, because you're having an emotional response to what you're watching. So that's such a good, beautiful thing. And I remember when I was going through I used to have a lot of panic attacks and anxiety. And panic attacks, as you know, I mean, you've probably had them. It's like, you can't breathe and you feel like you're having a heart attack, and the sweats and everything. I had different techniques and tools that I used to do to take them, the breath and the music. And I'd make sure I'd got up and just moved my body, so I could just disconnect that response, that trauma response, or the coping, whatever was going on within you. I so love that. It's so awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So what is the one thing or something that you would like to share with people that are listening, that around mental health, around, if they're feeling like they're just so deep in that space that they just can't get out? What would you like to share with them?
Well, there'd be two things that I would like to share to help people, and I practice to this day, and especially when you've got a lot of stress and you've got a lot of pressure on that, and that thinking's very tough. And so it's been said before, but it's very easy if you just write down what you need to do. And I run on a to-do list. It just helps me to be organised, help manage my father's affairs, my uncle's who was in hospital. Yeah. And I even look, what am I doing the next day? So the end of the day, I will have, what am I doing tomorrow? And so that helps give me purpose. and be prepared, and also build in space, because often I'll get a phone call from the aged care facility from my uncle and something needs to be done. And it might be as simple as a COVID, vaccine authority, or he could be in hospital. I've got to grab Dad and we've got to go up there. So, and when you start, it's like, okay, and I did this when I was shot. I said, lying here in bed, I'm feeling miserable. All right, I've got my list. I don't have to think. I'm going to make bed. I'm going to make coffee and do my emails. And I felt that little bit better.
Yeah, I love that. Because you had purpose, right? You gave yourself purpose.
Yeah. So I would do that. The other thing that I would like to share, so, short term and long term is very important. You need to keep them both in focus. And so on the short term, I will have something to look forward to. Tonight, I'm going to a professional speakers meeting. Tomorrow night, I'm going to cook myself a very nice dinner. But at the end of the day, there's always something. Another one is, particularly the time we've been in, all the news is negative. We're staying at home. We're watching all these dramas and documentaries, and they're really intense. They can be really interesting. I'm watching Narcos Mexico Series 3 right now. But I'm going to bed and I'm really, alive with energy. And I was like, I need to relax and go to sleep. And the world's not that bad. That's just TV. So for me, I put on South Park.
Oh, I love it. You do a comedy. I used to do a Big Bang Theory. I loved it. It just got me out of my head into my heart. I love it. Good laugh, right?
Yeah. So that's the short-term things that I do. But for somebody who's really, going through a very difficult time and they can't see that light at the end of the tunnel. And that was for me for a long time. But I said to myself, being a police officer, I know what suicide does to family and friends, can't do it to mum and dad. So I kept on going. And that enabled me to, things, it would actually go right at some point. Just by the law of averages, things will go right.
Yeah.
But what happened for me was I would go out running. Again, another modality, to relax, and I'd be running and a car would come across, and be amazed what gets left on a road. I think this particular time it was a pizza box, and the cars run over the pizza box. I jumped out of my skin with hyperarousal. My fists are up and I'm ready to go. The on button's been activated with all those chemicals. Yeah. What I would do next is I'd realize it's a pizza box, it's a car. It's like, damn, what would the old Daryl do? I'd get angry at myself. I would get so angry at myself and I'd beat myself up. And I says, I want to be the old Daryl. And I even had a friend say to me, and he was well-meaning, but it was true, because I changed so much after the shooting. I had, I was like, I had isolation, and I had depression. I didn't want to see people. I'd get angry. Yeah. Well, before the shooting, I was a really gregarious, outgoing, fun-loving person. And he said to me, and he says, hey, you're nearly back to the old Daryl. And that was nice of him to say that. But I always was aiming to get back to the old Daryl. And so I'd had these events. It was just me. It could be a door slamming, and it could be some legal paperwork that comes through. Yeah. And how would the old Daryl react? And it took about 10 years. And after that time period, and that I'd realised I had enough knowledge that we are all made up of our memories, every single one of us. And let's hope most of us have a lovely childhood and great memories and great careers and great relationships. But those relationships will form you and make you the person who you are. Yeah. It was that realisation that the shooting had impacted on me. It's changed who the person I am. I'm not a bad person, but there was just things that's changed about me. But if I hadn't been shot, I would have had some other experiences that would have changed me. And so it was the acceptance that, well, this is the Daryl I am now. And the Daryl I am now is going to be different in 5 years' time. It's going to be different in 20 years' time if I'm married and have children. And that stopped beating me up. And I tell you what, I still run every day, and cars will, streak past, and I'll turn around, that hyperarousal. Yeah. I can say to myself, oh, it's okay. That's just the shooting. Turn around and
it's just the shooting. Yeah. It's amazing that we can't go backwards. We just have to embrace and embody who we're moving into, and just love it and just understand it and accept, because we beat ourselves on such a deep level. It's crazy.
Exactly. Be kinder to yourself.
Kind.
Yeah, you know.
Because I do believe that however you are with yourself is how it reflects in your external world. So if you're treating, somebody else with more kindness than you're treating yourself, then you need to give yourself that, and vice versa. So, it's an absolute inside journey. It's an absolute inside job. And thank you so much. Is there anything that you'd like to say last of all to the audience before you go?
In relation to that, just think somebody else is going through, this particular, trauma or this particular incident. It could be a divorce. Well, you're a supportive friend. What would you do for them? Right. Well, you happen to be the person going through this. Why don't you do it for yourself?
Yeah.
And a little surprise for the audience. Let's bring my dad up.
Let's bring your dad up. This man stuck by you. Oh my goodness. He was such your support crew, and your mum. Here he is. Hey, Dad. Oh, it's such a beautiful
hard. Been a very hard time for us, but we've got through it, and we're looking ahead. So,
you were a big support for Daryl, weren't you? Like, you were there with him so much.
I honestly believe that if we hadn't been there for Daryl, Daryl wouldn't be here. Yeah, I'm sure of that.
Absolutely.
So we gave all the support we could, but it was a time that we never expected. A phone call 4 o'clock in the morning, Daryl had been shot. Yeah. And that's a very big wake-up call. And it's been a long, long journey. And with PTSD and that, I reckon it took 10 years out of his life.
Oh, and he'll still be going through it too.
On top of it.
Yeah. Totally. So, you know what? Support is the most important thing, because it's the people that are there for your darkest days are the ones that matter. They really are. It's so easy to be there for somebody when they're having good stuff, but when they're not,
yes,
it just shows you the beautiful love and bond that you two have.
Yeah.
Special.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions for my dad, Lisa, you'd like to ask?
I suppose just probably one thing I would love to know is, how was it on the other side of the spectrum, seeing the person that you love go? I mean, I know it would have been horrible, but, when there were times when you had to be there, how did you cope with it yourself? So after you'd been there and you'd supported Daryl and you'd done what you needed, how did you emotionally come back into you? Because it's a big thing to be a support person. It's huge.
Well, I finished up going to the same psychiatrist as Daryl did. And he helped me no end. But
because he would have known. Yeah.
Yeah. But for a long period of time, Daryl would come home, he'd be very unhappy. The workplace wasn't very good, and he had to have somebody to pass it on to. And it was Mum and I that was there to answer that and do what we could to encourage him that things would get better.
Yeah, but, to get the two of you to actually be able to help each other after that.
Yeah.
It's a big thing to take on, it really is. And when it's 10 years of constant, having to hold the space for your son.
This is what a lot of people don't see. And Dad is particularly fond of me sharing this story. So he's here now. So what I think I might show our audience and yourself this photograph, and Dad can tell you the story behind it.
Please.
Oh, that one. Yes.
That's your mum holding that, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Daryl had been to the dentist, and they'd cut a circle of skin out of the roof of his mouth, and they couldn't stop it from bleeding. Anyway, they sent him home with gauze that he could put in his mouth, and that got built up and got saturated. Anyway, he was in a lot of pain. He took sleeping tablets so he could sleep that night. And we got up in the morning, and I going along the corridor in the house, and I could see Daryl in bed, and that's what I saw.
Blood.
And my immediate reaction, I thought he had bled out.
Oh,
It was a
God.
horrifying time, and we had to get him up and take him into the shower and wash all the congealed blood off his face and chest.
This is the stuff people don't see, isn't it?
Yeah,
I think,
exactly.
oh, Daryl's just having a wee
I know.
holiday. You're right.
I only took a few photos, about 3 or 4 photos in that, but they're very relevant when he speaks. Yeah.
Yeah. That would have been traumatic for you. See, now you will have trauma from that. So I'm so glad that you went and you seek someone that you could talk to so that you could process and not hold that within.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah, yes.
Oh.
It's an amazing story, really. But
It is, because you're walking past
story.
thinking that your son's basically dead, lying in the bed with blood all around him.
The first thing in the morning, I just got up and was
Sitting in
going
the
in
coffee.
to see how he was, and I saw this massive blood. Oh, it was
Horrific.
really frightening. Yeah.
I bet it was.
Yeah.
But you
Yeah.
still got him here. Look at that. And they say that you're only as strong as your parents. So you guys must be extremely strong, because look at your son. Look what he's been through, and he's standing here and he's actually helping others now. That's what's so beautiful, is that he's giving back from his heart. So you've done very well.
Good. Thank you
Be
very
proud.
much. Yeah. Thank you. Bye now.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Really appreciate it. Oh, he's so
Thank
sweet.
you.
Oh. How do you feel?
Very
Good?
lucky.
You're very
very
lucky, because a lot of people don't have that. My dad left the day I was born, and all I wanted was a daddy. So it's beautiful to witness. It's so beautiful, really is. I had a very loving mum, but I always wanted a daddy, a little girl daddy. So cherish,
Yeah.
You don't. It's the beautiful thing is, Daryl, that you never take your parents for granted, and that is also a very rare thing, because people just expect their parents to do everything, and we're the ones that should be looking after our parents, not the other way around. So I commend you.
Yeah. Oh, no. I love him to death.
Yeah, I know, you can see
I
it.
like. He's always asking what's going on with the speaking, and for years I was bringing back negative stories and comments, and I was offloading to mum and dad for all those years, and they couldn't do anything on the work front, but they could do the stuff on the home front. And there was an amazing boss at work, Dave Stevenson, who really helped me through a very difficult period. And now it's my turn to bring good news to my dad. And so when I can say, hey, we've got an interview, we've got a virtual, or we've even got a live engagement. And so dad always comes along, and the audience love it.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Support is key. It really is. When anyone's going through anything emotionally, physically, it's support. Support is just, it's funny how we just sort of like tend to, well, a lot of people put themselves into a little corner. Oh no, I can't annoy anybody. I can't talk to anybody when, oh God. Anyway. So thank you so much for joining me, Daryl, and Daryl's dad. It was so beautiful to speak to you and sharing your journey, and the techniques that you shared to get through things, and the tips and the stories and the experience. I know that the people that are listening will just be having so many aha moments. It's going to be like, it's really nice to have someone that shares from the heart and helps and does a lot of what I do. So thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Lisa, it's an absolute pleasure, and thanks after your difficult early life, what you're doing now for others, because
people need more of you and me.
Exactly. Without somebody by our side who was support, who's caring and kind, we wouldn't be where we are. So thank you for what you're doing.
Oh, you're welcome. Okay, then. Well, thank you so much for listening to another episode of The Art of Quantum Healing. All of Daryl's links and information is down below. I really encourage you to go and watch his keynote, the 6-minute and the visual, and you'll be able to have a chuckle at what his dad thinks about his swearing. And that his mum's forgiven him. And we'll see you soon for another episode of The Art of Quantum Healing. See ya.
Thank you so much for listening to today's podcast. Make sure to check out all the show notes of today's episode on my website by clicking on the link in the description. Also, make sure to join my newsletter to receive a free guided meditation to help you feel grounded throughout your day. Finally, make sure to subscribe to my channel and help us grow the community by sharing it with your friends. I am your host, Lisa Nadler, and this is the Art of Quantum Healing.